Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Johannes Maronda. I am an academic writing tutor at the University of East London, and I welcome you to this session where we'll be talking about essay structuring, referencing, and criticality. And as everyone would appreciate, these are quite important elements that build a good essay. And at any time, please feel free to ask me questions to clarify certain ideas that I will talk about, or if there is a word that you don't understand, please feel free to ask a question. You can do so by putting a text in the chat, or you can use the raise hand icon. Hopefully, because I use Teams most of the time, I think in Zoom we have such a facility. Okay, right. That's my email. Should you need to contact me after this session, and the second email that I'm highlighting there with the icon is the academic tutoring email, which you can also use to make general inquiries like how do you submit your work, or if you need face-to-face support with academic tutors, you can use that email to write your request, or if you have a query. Right. Now, today we are going to be discussing how we structure essays, especially how we present our ideas in a coherent manner. We will also talk about how we critically evaluate arguments and reach well considered positions that are backed by evidence in the essays that we write. And more importantly, we will be talking about how we reference the ideas that we use. This is either through in-text referencing, or how we write a reference list at the end. And you all should be aware that we use the Harvard referencing system. So if in the past you have used a referencing system that is different from Harvard, make sure you are aware of the differences between what you already know and the Harvard system of referencing, and if there are if there is anything that is causing you problems or difficulties, please feel free to ask. Right. I'm going to start by sharing that exemplar assignment. This is taken from one of the master's special education modules. We are going to use this as a basis for our discussion. So this is a 5,000 word assignment, typical for most master's modules. So this assignment says discuss and evaluate and discuss different descriptions and understandings of autism, incorporating different models of disability into the analysis. As part of your discussion, you should consider the impact of these different descriptions of autism on how autistic children and young people are supported in schools. Right. You can see this is quite a complex assignment that requires many elements and different skills. You are required to evaluate, you are required to discuss, and there are different elements that are that underpin this assignment. For example, you will be looking at models of disability. You look at the impact these have on autistic children. So, given such a complex assignment, what one needs to do is to break it down. So we start the writing process by planning. We can only plan if we understand what we are doing. So we start by breaking down. So assignments can be broken down into components that include subjects of that assignment, restrictions, and instructions. So it's basically three elements, right? I'm trying to move my slides there so that you can see these elements, but it seems, yeah, my computer had frozen somehow. So yeah, so these three elements. So subjects tell us about what the essay is about, while restrictions narrow down to the specific context or aspects of the assignment in relation to area, time, and context. Right. Instructions tell us what we need to specifically do. So these are instructions are normally crafted using verbs or doing words. Now, taking these definitions into account of subject, restrictions, and instruction, what would you think is the subject or are the subject of this particular assignment? Any particular response? Right, I'm going to be looking at the chat as well. Right, you can put your answer in the chat box. I give you 30 seconds to a minute to think through this rather challenging assignment. Right. If I can give you a clue, broadly, what do you think this assignment is addressing? What do you think is the umbrella term or a concept that and encapsulates all the elements that are in this assignment? Anyone who want to has an answer here? I think it needs to discuss it during description. Yeah, but your answer, Breda, is not very specific here. If you can just give us a phrase or a one word answer, impact. Uh, no, if you were right, if I let's say rephrase my question in this way, if I were to ask, right, going to the library, which section of the module or special educational needs do you need to go to first before you can look at other key elements? Let's say you want to go to the library. What do you look for? Anyone who wants to give a suggestion? Autism, yes, great. So this assignment is about autism. So that's the subject. So if you were to say to go to the library, you would then go and look at the section that deals with autism. But then for you then to be able to answer the question more directly, you need then to isolate which elements of autism that I'm am I going to look for? And these are our restrictions now. So which are the restrictions here? Yeah, different models of disability. Yes, I would agree with you. What else? Yeah, models of disability. Right. In addition to that, I would also include, yeah, support structures in schools. Yes. Yeah. How young people are supported. Yes. Great. There's another element that is missing here. Yeah. So another element to that is the different descriptions of autism. Yeah. So we are looking at different descriptions because this will help you when you are answering the question now. It helps to you to understand what you need to include in your assignment, or even you were at the research stage. So you might want to look, what are the different descriptions of autism? How is it defined? What are the differences in the definitions? What are the models of disabilities? Because then these descriptions are tied to or associated with particular models of disability. It could be the social model, it could be psychological, biosocial, and so forth. Right. So these are the restrictions. Now, lastly, what are our instruction words here? Remember, keep in mind that I said these are normally verbs, so this should be an easy an easy question for you. Yeah, thank you, Breda, for all the answers that you gave there. I'm quite impressed. Thank you. Right now, the instruction words. Someone else? Mind you, I've said these should be verbs. Right. Anyone typing? Uh, right. Okay. Yeah, it seems uh, this is a difficult question for you. However, I thought this should be the easiest because, yes, evaluate and discuss. You have hit the nail right on its head. Great. Right. So those are the key elements that you need to be looking at, and especially at the planning stage. Now, let's go on to the planning stage to see how we might move this process forward. Right. So, right, those are the, you can see, those are the answers that you presented to me. Huh? I have color coded them according to how the key elements were presented in the previous slides. Green for restrictions, blue for subjects, and red for instruction words, which are evaluated and discussed. Now, looking at these instruction words, some of you might be wondering, what do they really mean? Because sometimes words can uh, mean different things to different people. However, these are some general definitions of the verbs that are used in most of the assignments that you will encounter. So the previous assignments, which we saw in the slides, said discuss and evaluate. So here it's a definition of discuss is to investigate, examine in detail, sifting arguments and debates, giving reasons for and against, and examining the implications. Evaluate, discuss the importance or value of, and judge, right? So what is important here, especially at master's level, whenever you are writing an assignment, make sure you are engaged in an argument, because the written essays revolves around the written argument. So just bear that in mind, right? So given those definitions, you can now go on and to plan your your essay. So the planning stage is a 6-stage process, and we have already covered the first stage, which is analyzing the question. Now, secondly, how do you find and organize the relevant material, right? Here, what you might want to bear in mind is there are different sources where you can find information. It could be textbooks, it could be journals, and each of them is its own merits and demerits. Your starting point could be your prescribed text. So textbooks are useful in the sense that they can be used as the starting point, because they provide an outline of a particular topic, and they give a thematic development of the concept, which are normally arranged in a in a staged process, or the process of development is well organized, from starting from a simple concept going to more complex terms. So it would be appropriate if you start with textbooks. In addition to that, you can then go on to look at special journal articles that deal with various key elements. For example, let's say you are dealing with different descriptions of autism, or you are dealing with how these are used to support children in various classroom settings, or in various schools. So you then need to look at more specialized articles. You may not be able to find such material in textbooks, so journals would be a good source. However, journals sometimes can include, can have difficult jargon or lexicon that you might not be familiar with. But however, you can always use reading approaches like trying to find the meaning of the word from topic sentences, from concluding sentences. That's where the main points or main messages are normally contained. However, if you need more help with reading difficult texts like journals, you could also go to the UEL study skills section, where we give advice on how to read these difficult genres of knowledge. Right now, so after you have organized the various information or ideas that you think will be appropriate to respond to a particular question, you Then go on to make a plan. A plan normally includes the introduction at the beginning. Then you have your body, the essay body, that can comprise of a number of paragraphs, followed by a conclusion. Once you have done that, you can begin the writing process, always closely referring to the plan that you have put in place. You could start with maybe your most compelling arguments, followed by those that are that follow them in order of importance until you have exhausted all the points that you consider important. Having produced a draft, if you are not sure about the quality of the work that you have produced, maybe you are not sure about referencing, or you are not sure about whether you have structured your ideas well, you can submit your work on UEL, my feedback link, which is in the tutoring SharePoint, which I will show you at the end. That draft will be looked at, and you will be given a response with the various areas that you might need to improve in 3 days. Right. So that's basically the planning process. Right. So in the planning process, we what you might need to bear in mind, maybe in addition to what I have said, is maybe as you make your plan, and having identified the key points and the experts who raised those points, maybe to give supporting evidence in the form of examples, the data and illustration, especially on the element that asks you for how are children and young people supported in schools. Right. Now, to go more in depth on the structure of the essay, we start with the introduction. How do you structure your introduction? So your introduction should be a brief, succinct paragraph that is no more than 1/10 of your essay. So in a 5,000 word essay, it should be around 500 words. What does it do? So the paragraph outlines the main arguments that you dwell on in that particular essay, and it does so by perhaps linking these arguments to relevant perspectives. It could be the perspective, for example, in this particular essay, would be the medical or psychological approach to disability, the social, biosocial. And again, having done that, it might be necessary to define key terms that are contained in the essay. But if you think this might not be feasible because of space constraints, you can then signpost and define those keywords immediately after the introduction, so that you clarify to your readers, you clarify your own understanding of the concept that you will be talking about, including how also they might be interpreted in other contexts. So definitions are important because they ensure that your discussion is made clearer to your readers, because you are presenting your understanding of the words and how they will be applied in that particular assignment. And more importantly, once you have outlined the key arguments, link them to the key perspectives, and maybe you could briefly discuss why these arguments are important to that particular essay. And maybe after that, state your point of view uh, about that particular topic, or a position you will take, or an argument you are going to dwell on within that assignment. And this particular statement is known as the thesis statement, and it's very important because it guides the reader to know what position you are taking. In the previous sessions, questions have been asked around whether you need to reference in the introduction. There is no strict requirement for you to reference in the introduction. However, you might want to refer to people who have defined that particular field. For example, if you are talking about language, names like Chomsky, names in attachment, it could be Baub. If it is language development, it could be Vygotsky. So you can contextualize your essay by making reference to these experts who have had an impact on the shaping of the field, and who have produced classic work in that particular field that needs mentioning or highlighting at the beginning, because these experts uh, are important to be making reference to, because that will help you to base your arguments on, or to use them as a reference points to say such and such an expert is talked and contributed to thinking this particular field. However, other people have also contributed, and these then come in within the main body of the essay. Are we together at this point? If there are any questions, please feel free to ask anything in the chat box. Right, right. Yeah, I can't see any questions. Right. If at all you have a question, just drop it in the chat box. Now, uh, after the introduction, you may then go on to the main body. But let's see at some exemplar introductions here. I give you, let's say, 2 to 3 minutes to go through that introduction and see how it is structured in terms of the key elements that we have discussed before. Yeah, that word in the second line, it meant to be this. There seems to be not this. The THERE. Yeah, that should be a typing error. Right. Who can identify a thesis statement in this particular introduction? Anyone who can identify thesis statement there? Yeah, you can just type a sentence beginning with these words. Just if you give us just 2, 3 words, that should be sufficient. You don't have to write uh, the whole the whole sentence. Yeah, remember that I said, yeah, okay, I find referencing overwhelming. I do not know how to go about any technique. Okay, we'll be discussing that. Autism can be understood, right? Let's see. Uh, yeah, but not quite. Remember, sorry. Oh, what did I do? Remember, I said your thesis statement is the main argument that you are going to dwell on in that particular essay. What all the issues will revolve around. So rather, I would think this essay will argue that the medical model is the dominant model upon which diagnosis is often based in majority of settings, fails to take into account the disabling effect of environment, incorporating gender and transgender identities. Yeah, so yeah, I think that's what the main argument will be, because then what it means by implication, it means the essay then while it talks about the medical model, it will talk about other models that are associated with diagnosis of autism, right? Let's move on. Now, having looked at that exemplar introduction, we need to move on to how to structure our paragraphs. We'll be looking at main elements of the paragraph. We also look at how we signpost ideas and how we critically analyze those ideas. So let me start with the structure of a paragraph. Right, here is a framework known as the PEEL framework. This framework consists of point, evidence, explanation, and evaluation, and last link or conclusion. So this model is very popular, especially in writing essays, because it makes it gives you an opportunity to make your ideas clear by following a particular sequence. So uh, starting by a topic sentence, this is where you state the main idea you want to talk about in this paragraph by either making a claim or an assertion. Then this claim would then need to be supported by evidence or supporting sentences that give more information or ideas that add on to consolidate this particular point. It could be 2, 3 sentences that give more evidence. And in this particular case, these ideas now need to be referenced through in-text referencing, because you are drawing them from your readings, as you will see in the examples that I will show you later on. Yeah. So having given this supporting evidence, you might then want to evaluate to what extent they are useful, because any given idea can be challenged from different standpoint. So you need to evaluate. This evaluation might be your own commentary on to what extent is this useful in practice, or it could be showing limitations of that particular idea, maybe by proposing alternative viewpoints to say, while this is useful, however, different thinking around this particular issue says this. And once you have done that, you may not go into detail about that particular alternative idea. Maybe you could then say other thinking around this issue that is challenged this position, claims that, and this will be discussed in the next paragraph, because you might not have sufficient space to articulate or to explain the challenges that have been presented against that particular idea. However, at this point, what's important is you make your reader aware that even there's this strong evidence. However, I am aware that there is alternative thinking around this issue. Even when you then go on to the next paragraph to give alternative viewpoints, you might want to say this are the alternative viewpoints. However, they are not strong enough for us to discredit, for us to discredit this initial theory. However, they are helpful in widening our own perspectives and understanding. So that's how you argue. An argument is not simply about presenting alternative viewpoints, but then even if you present those alternative viewpoints, you then need to give your own position, because if you just give us contrary viewpoints and leave it at that, your essay hasn't proved anything. You then need to say, does the opposing claims make us lose confidence in that theory, or make that theory unviable in practice, or make it less applicable, or make it not appropriate to use in practice. So you should be able to qualify your discussion by taking this position to say, this is a compelling point. However, there are these alternative viewpoints. These alternative viewpoints, while they contribute to widening our perspective, they are not sufficient for us to use in practice, because they have also these limitations which make them impractical in terms of the settings, the particular settings that we are discussing, right? So that's how we structure our paragraphs. And once we have talked about a key idea, supported it with evidence, and maybe hinted at an alternative viewpoint, or showed its particular limitations, you then conclude by stating your position. To what extent is it useful? So a paragraph should have a concluding sentence. Any questions with regards to this paragraph structure? Right. There are other paragraph structures you are free to explore, but I find this very easy to use, as it makes your writing clear and more organized in terms of the sequence. Right. Now, let's then look at what you other things that you need to consider when you are writing your paragraphs. So paragraphs need to be structured sequentially, uh, starting with your introduction. Then it could be 3, 4, 5, 6 main paragraphs and a main conclusion. But within that paragraph, we have already talked about the key elements that you need to consider: your topic sentence, your supporting sentences, your evaluation, and your conclusion, right? You also bear in mind that do not mix issues. Consider one particular issue at a time, or one particular theme or sub-theme. Do not include different things in a paragraph, because then this confuses your readers. And as you discuss, you might want also to look at why, if there are any differences in thinking, how do they come about? Why are they, what causes these differences? And also, as you make your conclusions, we expect you to be fair, making balanced judgments based on available evidence, not simply highlighting or focusing on those ideas that are favorable to your own assumptions or to your own thinking. So balance them with alternative viewpoints. And if you are dismissing those viewpoints, we need to see the reasons for that. And always synthesize these arguments by reaching an overall viewpoint at the end. Right. Now, the next element that we might need to look at is criticality. And this is very important at master's level, because a high premium is given to the grades that you get. A high premium is given to criticality. Right. What do we really mean by criticality? I've touched on some elements of criticality in the previous slide, right? Criticality simply means, as you discuss the ideas, the main ideas that shape thinking in a particular field, make sure you are looking at why do these ideas come about, how, by looking at alternative viewpoints. The why could be based, certain ideas are come about because of certain assumptions that people make. And these assumptions might be wrong assumptions, or it could be to the philosophies that we subscribe to. For example, if say you subscribe to a liberal thinking, as opposed to, say, a more revisionist approach or Marxist approach that makes an assumption that inequality is caused by class divisions and how wealth is distributed. Whereas a different standpoint, a position might be, maybe you might think differences or inequalities come about because certain sections of society or certain individuals do not apply themselves diligently to achieve positive outcomes in their lives. But then, whatever position you take, make sure you support that with evidence to make a solid case for your position. So this model of generating critical thinking starts from the descriptions side. If, say, you are talking of autism, or what 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 are the different descriptions of autism, or what are the different understandings? Why do they come about? For example, you might take the position that special educational needs like autism need a special management, maybe in special classes or special schools. Whereas a contra position would be that this is socially inappropriate, because then it amounts to segregation. And in the interest of justice, all learners need to be educated in the same environment. But then, even if you do that, the question that might arise is, if you educate learners in the same environment, are you not disadvantaging those that are less capable to cope in those in those diverse settings? So these are arguments that you need to be thinking around and making a solid case for a position you are going to take, let's say, with uh, with regards to issues, contentious issues like special educational needs. So critical thinking looks at why. Why are you, why do certain decisions come about? For example, educating uh, learners in separate environments. Uh, in the how do they cope in these environments? You might then want to find statistics that while it's politically attractive to educate these learners in the same settings, however, evidence is shown that their outcomes have been negative in most of the settings that this has been applied. Therefore, this might not be appropriate. So you are now looking at the how, what if. So the what if then comes to, having looked at all these merits and demerits, you are then looking at a viable proposition would be, for the sake of inclusion, creating or educating these in same settings, however, creating special classes for those students whose severe needs make it difficult for them to cope in mainstream classes, something like that. So what? So what would then be, this might work, however, they might be need for close monitoring where particular students with these particular needs are failing to cope. That's the so what. What next? Policymakers may need to look at these various contradictions that come about in implementing policy. So that's a critical a model to generate a critical thing. So as you delve and write your essay, you might want to use this framework to guide you to uh, focus on particular elements of the ideas that you are talking about, so that you reach well-considered conclusions or positions that have looked at various sides of the argument. The argument. Okay, right. Now, so that's any question on critical thinking, or anything you might want me to clarify. I know. Okay, right. Seems there are There are no questions there, right? We may proceed. Right. Here is a table that describes descriptive writing and critical or analytical writing. Read it during your spare time. So your essay should be should draw closer to those elements that are on the right side that seek to identify significance of issues, making evaluations, reasoned judgments, arguing a case according to evidence, right, and so forth. So read through and see which elements you can apply as you write each of your paragraphs. Right, now we want to look at signposting. As you write, it's always important to make your ideas as clear as possible. And this can only happen if you signpost and link your ideas. For example, when you start a new paragraph, link, tell the reader what has gone before it. Yeah, the previous discussion is highlighted the importance of appropriate behavior management in this section is going to discuss this. And inside the paragraph, use appropriate linking language, discourse markers, connectives, conjunctions to connect the ideas, right? I will show you some examples of these linking words, right? Let me see. Right. Yeah, right. Here are some of the examples. For example, where you are indicating the next step, you can say then, as said before, making an illustration. For instance, for example, in this particular case, where you are contrasting, nevertheless, contrary, however. So this is important, especially where you are giving a different viewpoint. However, this perspective has been challenged by experts who argue that, or where you are adding information, or you are talking about similar ideas and you are making an extension of a particular central idea, you could use, in addition to this thinking, other experts have argued that, or similarly, Chomsky thinks this is important. This is an important element of language which needs to be considered when working in these particular circumstances. Right. So those are the particular signposting words. Now, let's look at how you make your judgments. We talked about making judgments and conclusions, and we said you need to be fair in how you make these judgments. And again, do not take absolute positions on particular issues. What I mean by this, even if there is strong evidence for a particular action, do not present as it is a silver bullet, because it can be challenged by uh, other experts who might have different evidence to yours. So do this by using hedging language. You could perhaps say the evidence suggests that, or it seems there is compelling evidence to conclude that. So this kind of hedging words uh, gives credibility to your work, because your readers will have confidence, because they know that you are reaching these conclusions in the full awareness that these are not absolute truths, but they are only subjective conclusions you have reached upon the evidence that you are using. Right. Now, let's look at examples of some of these so-called critical paragraphs. Here is an example you might want to take 2 to 3 minutes to read through before we proceed. Right. Any comment on this paragraph? You can see I've highlighted all the key skills that I've been talking about. I put the topic sentence there, supporting evidence, further evidence and explanation, critical evaluation. And as you can see in my critical evaluation, there isn't much referencing there because then this is my own position to the issue. I am evaluating what I have presented above. So this is my own voice that I'm presenting. And again, in the concluding sentence, there is no referencing there to indicate that these are my views. However, as you can see here, look at the language, external rewards could, that's it, it leaves room for other alternative viewpoints. So that's a word that is used to hedge that idea. It's suggestive rather than taking an absolute position. Consequently, this might, it might not. So again, those are some hedging words that you need to be in the habit of using when you make your conclusions. Right, let's go forward. Right, that's another example. We won't go, we won't read that in this session. You might want to read it later on. Now let's look at the conclusion, then quickly go through referencing. So when you conclude, refer back to the question, demonstrate how you have answered the question, but and what arguments that you have dwelt upon, what overall position have you reached, but your conclusion should summarize the main arguments and show consistency. It should agree with all the ideas that you have propagated in the above paragraphs. Right. As you conclude, normally in the conclusion, we don't reference because you are just summarizing the key points and avoid adding any new material in the conclusion. And again, as the introduction, it should be about 1/10, so about 500 words for a 5,000 word essay. Right, I've already talked about signposting. These are just extra examples that show you how to signpost paragraphs. Again, the some additional material on the words that you could use and how you craft your conclusions. Right. Now, let's go on to referencing, and I'm going to be summarizing in the interest of time. So when you reference, if you are referring to one author, you begin by citing the surname of that author, followed by the year of publication of their work. So McCulloch, open brackets, 2018, close brackets, claims that. So that's one method of citation. An alternative method is to write the statement and put both the surname and the year of publication in bracket, separated by a comma. And again, here you, although you are making reference to the author, the words should be yours. Where you are using the exact words of the author, this should be in quotation marks. So you can look at that statement. I've the quotation marks have gone again. Sorry. So it might be McCulloch argues that, right. So from supporting children, that's where your single quotation mark starts right at the end. And so the exact words that you have used should be put in quotation marks, and you put the page number where you took that quotation. Yeah. My apologies. I think the quotation marks that I put there have disappeared. Sometimes when you export slides, the formatting does change. Yeah. But the important point is the exact words of the author need to be in quotation marks. And again, there should be a page number. Right. Where you are citing two authors, the names of both, the surnames of both authors need to appear. Carol and McCulloch, 2018, argue that three authors is that all the three. From four authors, now you can use et al. Et al simply means and others, and that's how you present the citation. Where you are putting the author at the beginning is et al in italics, full stop, open bracket, 2023, and where you are putting the reference at the end of the sentence, you include everything in brackets, et al in italics, full stop, in the comma, 2023, close bracket. And as you can see, there are differences in terms of the formatting. In the first instance, it's just a full stop. In the second instance, it's full stop and a comma, where you are putting everything inside brackets, right? Now, if say you are citing an article that appeared or on a web page, or you are using a web page, and there's no author to that article, simply use the title of that web page or the organization that published it. If it is Department for Education, you say Department for Education said this, like DFE, like that. But where you are using abbreviations, in the first instance, use the full version of that abbreviation followed by the acronym. Then subsequently, it's permissible to just write DFE or BBC, like what I've done there. Yeah, right. That's for corporate authors. In some cases, where you might have publications, again, with no author, you can use the title of that publication. For example, if that publication is called Sexual Lifestyles, just write Sexual Lifestyles 2019, but you put that in italics. Now, at master's level, there is an expectation that when you are writing, you multiple reference to demonstrate that you have read widely. For example, you might want to attribute a particular idea to a number of authors. So when you do that and name drop these authors in bracket, you arrange them in chronological order of publication, not by surname. For example, here you can see I have arranged my authors in order of the publication date, starting with the earliest to the latest. But then where you find two authors published in the same year, now switch to the alphabetical order. In, for example, here, Larkin and Nettleton, I have started with Larkin because it comes first in the alphabet. Right. Right. These are right. These are instances where one author has written two publications and you are citing those. These publications appeared in the same year. So the first one to be published, you put small letter A, the second one, small letter B. And where two publications, you are citing two publications in different years by the same author, they are presented simply as, say, Larkin, 2013 and semicolon 2019. Semicolon is used to separate different publications, like here. Let me go back to the previous slide. Right. Like in this particular slide, can you see Marmot and Wilkinson 2011? I put semicolon to separate it from the next publication, which is by Larkin 2013, semicolon again, Greens and others 2015. Right. So those are the basic, some basics about referencing. And again, before we summarize secondary referencing is where one author cites another expert. For example, here we have an author called Gabriel. Yeah, Gabriel wrote this article, but then Gabriel cites Foucault in this particular article. So now, if you are writing your assignment and you are using Foucault's ideas, but however, you didn't read these ideas in the actual work by Foucault, but in Gabriel, you then say Foucault 1988, that's the original publication, cited in Gabriel 2017, says this. And again, if you choose an alternative presentation, is again Foucault 1988 cited in Gabriel at the end of the sentence. Right, that's secondary referencing. Now, when you go on to write a reference list, it's by alphabetical order of the author's surnames. If it is a textbook, it's author surname, initial, year of publication in brackets, title of book in italics, place of publication, colony, then publisher. For a journal, it's author, year of publication in bracket, title in single quotation marks. That's the title of the article. Now, what goes in italics in a journal is the journal title, followed by volume number, page numbers, and DOI, digital object identifier, if it is available. where you are citing a website, its author's surname and initial, then a title of that particular article in italics, you put full stop, then you copy the URL and paste it. After that, you then put the date when you last read that article, like what I've done there. Okay, right. I know I've covered quite a lot, and referencing can be a challenge as the writer who put a message in the text is correctly said that referencing is quite a challenge. However, you can always refer to these slides, and if you are still lost, you can use Cite Them Right online. It gives you very clear guidance on what to do. Right. Are there any questions that you might need me to address before I talk about extra support and we close? Right. If there are no questions, then what I might wish to just remind you is these are some of the websites that are useful. Manchester Phrase Bank is important for signposting terms. It gives you guidance on how to start paragraphs, how to critique given ideas, and how to make conclusions. Cite Them Right online gives you guidance on referencing. And if you need to book for drop-in support, you can do this by going to student links. In student links, you will see a link that takes you to study skills. In some cases, it might be written as academic tutoring. All the same, this will take you to a page like that, where you can put your draft assignments on my feedback, book for drop-in times, book for drop-in slots, which is the last link. Then in between those are maths and writing resources. Right. If there are no questions, I would like to thank you for attending this session and good luck with your assignments. We would like to see you engaging with us, booking for drop-in or writing to us, asking questions on or clarifications on particular problematic aspects of your studies. Good luck.
Thanks, everyone.